dark and difficult times lie ahead. Soon we must all face the choice between what is right and what is easy.
Please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I do solemnly and sincerely declare and affirm that I will well and truly serve the Queen in the office of Constable with fairness, integrity, diligence, and impartiality, upholding fundamental human rights, and according equal respect to all people, and that I will, to the best of my power, cause the peace to be kept and preserved, and prevent all offences against people and property, and that while I continue to hold the said office, I will, to the best of my skill and knowledge, discharge all the duties thereof, faithfully, according to law.
I still don't know where to begin with this video. I wanted to put something together that is a bit more informative than the video that I put up yesterday, which was quite literally just of the clip you're seeing on screen. In fact, it wasn't even this full clip, it was a shorter version. The clip that you're now seeing is a much longer clip. The failings that South Yorkshire Police have made in this incident is truly, truly unbelievable. And I think the worst thing about it at the moment, from what I've discovered to date, is the attempt to justify this action from South Yorkshire Police themselves. They have tried to justify the actions of this police person in a tweet that they put up on Twitter. Chief Superintendent and Match Commander Sarah Pullman said yesterday, the 8th of February, following the Barnsley v Sheffield Wednesday match, our officers responded to disorder between fans outside of the transport interchange. A full, open investigation, including extended video footage, will take place to ascertain the circumstances surrounding the incident, including the actions that led to a 16-year-old boy sustaining a head injury from an officer's baton, and an officer being assaulted, sustaining injuries to his stomach and head. The 16-year-old boy was taken to hospital by ambulance. The police officer also attended hospital. Both of their injuries are not life-threatening. A 47-year-old man was arrested on suspicion of assaulting an emergency service worker. He has been released under investigation. Where do we start with this statement? First of all, we know that a full, open investigation is not going to take place. An incident like this should immediately be passed to an external review board, not be investigated by colleagues. That's the first thing, because we all know, as a chief superintendent, as an inspector, as a sergeant, as a superintendent, you are responsible for your officers. And so if your officers are in trouble, you are in trouble. So this should never be investigated by colleagues. That's the first thing. The second part here is including the actions that led to a 16-year-old boy sustaining a head injury from an officer's baton. Very clever, Chief Superintendent and Match Commander Sarah Pullman. You've very cleverly worded that in a way that doesn't make it sound like a police officer used the kid's head as a baseball, which is clear, by the way, from the footage, is exactly what happened. Then you try and justify the police constable's behaviour by suggesting that an officer was assaulted as well, sustaining injuries to his stomach and head. Now, maybe that's part of the incident that wasn't seen on video, but there was certainly no police constable there that was holding their head, complaining about a head injury in any way, shape or form. In fact, I did see, quite rightly so I might add, a member of the public kick the police constable off of the boy, and I would shake that man's hand if I could. If he is the person who's being investigated for assaulting an emergency worker, I would suggest that if he is convicted of anything, there is going to be serious uproar, because he did what he needed to do as a citizen. Under common law, he is allowed to intervene and use proportionate force to stop what can only be described as one of the most abhorrent assaults that I have seen in a long time. In fact, I would suggest it is on par with Rodwan's assault on the super cop who got his head almost chopped off with a machete. I would suggest also that the injuries this poor lad sustained are probably as bad as the machete attack. The fact that you're trying to justify the actions is disgusting, especially as if an officer was assaulted, which he wasn't, he was being prevented from hurting the child anymore. The assault was done after the lad had been assaulted by your police constable, and that is justifiable. You also say that the police officer also attended hospital as if to make out he was, severely injured or injured enough to go to hospital, which clearly from the footage, which we'll see again in a moment, he wasn't. He was quite happy to stand there with his arm raised, waving his baton, ready to hit again, whilst holding on to the lad. So he clearly didn't have a hurt hand at that point, and that is after he got kicked off of the boy. Both injuries are non-life threatening. However, I'm presuming right now you're wiping the sweat from your brow that it's not life-threatening. Although that's not to say that it's not going to be life-changing. A hit around the head of that calibre can do some serious damage, and I pray to, well, I don't pray because I don't believe in God, and the reason I don't believe in God is because things like this are happening in this world. But I really, really hope that lad has no long-lasting effects. But what does that matter to you? Because you won't be held accountable for it, will you? And nor will William Sampson, PC 3139 from Ecclesfield Police of South Yorkshire Police. Of course, you are trying to justify the actions, and I think that is as abhorrent as the incident itself. The simple fact that you've not turned round and said in your statement that the police constable has been suspended pending investigation. I know that he's off for the next 2 days. I know that he's not in until the 11th. 7 o'clock on the 11th of this month he's back in to his shift. So he's having a couple of days off, isn't he? A couple of rest days, as they call it. Or maybe even he's reading the use of force policy document. This one from West Yorkshire Police. I would presume it's the same for all police forces to hand out to their constables. Now let's have a look, shall we? There is legislation which covers you for using force on a person while performing your duty. Common law self-defence. Clearly that was not. Section 3 of the Criminal Law Act 1967, which says a person may use such force as is reasonable in the circumstances in the prevention of crime or in effecting or assisting in the lawful arrest of offenders or suspected offenders or of persons unlawfully at large. Clearly that was not. And then we have section 117 of the Police and Criminal Evidence Act 1984, which is the powers of a constable to use reasonable force. And that simply says, where any provision of this act confers a power on a constable and does not provide that the power may only be exercised with the consent of some person other than a police officer, the officer may use reasonable force if necessary in the exercise of the power. And then you have the considerations. Your decision to use force will depend on your assessment of the situation. 2 16-year-old boys scrapping. Okay. Your own ability to deal with the incident of 2 16-year-old boys scrapping. Okay. And the threat posed. Not much of a threat from 2 16-year-old boys who are scrapping 50 yards away. And if we move down, the use of the baton. I'm going to link this document in the description, guys. But here we have, if you carry a baton, you can use it for restraining a person or protecting against a violent attack. Neither of those cases are evident in this situation. He wasn't trying to restrain a person, and he wasn't protecting against a violent attack. Although no doubt that's probably the angle that they're going to go down. You should also be aware of the vital and vulnerable striking areas of the human body. Vital and vulnerable striking areas. Green target areas. The level of trauma which results from striking green target areas is minimal. Injuries tend to be temporary rather than long-lasting. However, exceptions can occur. Yellow target areas. Striking yellow target areas leads to a moderate to serious level of trauma. Injuries tend to be more long-lasting, but can also be temporary. Red target areas. Striking red areas can result in the highest levels of trauma. Injuries can be serious and long-lasting. They include unconsciousness, serious bodily injury, shock, and even death. Even in this document, they try to justify the use of a head strike. Even in this document, they try to justify the use of a head strike. Okay, we have a fictional scenario. An officer has just been engaged. I've got to read this to you. I know this video is getting long. I apologise, but I have to read this to you because this is important to know how they try and justify it. An officer has been engaged at an incident, lifting heavy boxes to clear a main road. That's very important. Lifting heavy boxes to clear a main road. You might think that that's inconsequential, but please keep listening. 10 minutes later, the officer receives a message to attend a domestic dispute at the home of David Briggs, a local nightclub doorman. Briggs, who is 38 years old, 6'2" tall and weighs 17 stones, has a turbulent relationship with his girlfriend. 44-year-old male officer attending the incident is physically fit, 5'8" tall and weighs 11 stones. On exiting the police vehicle, the officer hears shouting and screaming from Briggs's flat. The officer hears a male voice shouting, "I'm going to fucking kill you." The officer recognises his voice as Briggs. As the officer approaches the front door on his own, he hears screaming and crying from what he believes to be a female. The noise appears to be escalating to a level of hysteria. The officer calls for assistance and is told that the only unit available has been dispatched but is some 5 minutes away. The officer hears screams from a female shouting, "Don't hit me again, you're going to kill the baby." The officer knocks on the flat door. Briggs shouts through the door, "Fuck off, copper, or you'll get some." The officer pushes open the unlocked door only to see a female curled up on the floor, sobbing hysterically with her face concealed from view. The officer shouts to the female, "Are you alright? Where is he?" She doesn't reply. Briggs appears shouting, "Get out of this fucking flat, this is private." The officer shouts at Briggs, "Calm down." Briggs replies, "You fucking calm down." Briggs punches a hole in the plaster wall as he advances towards the officer. The officer quickly draws and extends his baton, shouting, "Get back." Briggs continues to advance, carrying both fists clenched in front of him and staring straight at the officer. As Briggs continues to advance, the officer jabs him to the solar plexus, as approved in police training methods. This only enrages Briggs, who swings a punch at the officer. No contact is made. The officer, feeling extremely frightened and fearful for his own safety, issues a warning to Briggs, shouting, "Get back." The officer aims a baton strike intended for Briggs's shoulder, a green area, but in the ensuing scuffle strikes Briggs on the side of the head instead. Briggs falls to the floor, clutching a head wound. Now, you see how this is being used to justify a potential head injury on somebody. Why somebody would go for a shoulder initially seems to be a ridiculous idea to me, although no doubt they would probably suggest they was in a hallway or something like that and didn't have the swing to be able to swing round and get him. Ultimately, if it was me, I wouldn't stay in the confined area. I would try and draw him out of the property where I have room to manoeuvre. But that's just me, and I'm not some dumb fucking police constable. Even in, as I say, this use of force policy, they try to give their police constables a get out of jail free card, if you like. They actually suggest in this that the officer had been lifting heavy boxes recently, so he was exhausted. That is a reason to hit somebody over the head or to attempt to hurt somebody severely, is because they're exhausted. The skill level. Briggs is accustomed to dealing with physical confrontation on a professional level. Well, so should the police. Sex, age and size, relative strength being at a disadvantage. Briggs is younger than the officer and physically a much bigger man. Okay, I can understand that, but then you have all of those green areas and yellow areas that you can attack without going for the red areas. This is all designed to try and help police get out of the shit. Okay, we go down here. Deadly force, imminent danger, serious or aggravated resistance. Hitting somebody to the head, in my opinion, is use of potentially deadly force, and I don't think many people disagree with me on that. And so I am seriously at a loss as to how PC William Sampsons 3139 from Ecclesfield Police, South Yorkshire Police, is going to get out of this one. I do, and I will continue to say that I think the force investigating this incident is a very bad idea, and therefore should in fact be investigated by an outside, review of some description. Now let's go to common law, as the police are allowed to use common law. Let's just explain that very quickly. Now, on the College of Policing website, it actually states common law self-defence. The right to self-defence is recognised in common law. This includes the right for a person to use reasonable force to protect themselves or another where necessary. Now, if we look back at this video and we see this police officer getting kicked off of the lad who he has just viciously assaulted, under common law, the guy who kicked that police constable was perfectly within their rights to use self-defence to protect another person. This goes on to say the law does not require persons, including police officers, to wait until there has been an assault before they take action. A man about to be attacked does not have to wait for his assailant to strike the first blow or fire the first shot. Circumstances may justify a preemptive strike. Police officers therefore have the right to defend themselves from unlawful physical violence, as do we as members of the public. They also have a duty to protect others from harm, as do we as members of the public. If police officers do not take appropriate and proportionate action to protect others from harm, they may be violating the human rights of those involved. Therefore, it is important that police officers give high regard to the rights of individuals in how they exercise their discretion. We'll get back to that last sentence, or the last two sentences about violating human rights in just 1 second. But clearly, this police constable was not using proportionate, reasonable force to protect themselves or another. This was two 16-year-old lads scrapping in the street. If the police constable felt that he was unable to deal with an incident of two 16-year-olds scrapping in the street, he certainly shouldn't be a police constable. Now, the last thing I want to bring to your attention is, as I've just said, They also have a duty to protect others from harm. If police officers do not take appropriate and proportionate action to protect others from harm, they may be violating the human rights of others. You can see here all these other police constables turning up, not assisting the person who was assaulted. Even that police woman, if you can call her a woman there, who, when she comes running in, starts hitting people as well, instead of dragging the assaulting officer off of the lad and taking control of the situation. In my eyes, that would be a violation of the human rights of the lad that got assaulted, because she did not, as a police constable, take appropriate and proportionate action to protect the lad from harm. I'm ending the video there. I hope that you've got something out of this video. Maybe you've learned something you didn't know. Maybe I've shown you something that you didn't see before. I appreciate this video is angering many people. I am, of course, going to be following through on this incident and bringing you updates as and when they are available. Until next time, stay safe, look after each other, film the police and other officials. Good night, all. Thank you for taking the time to watch this video. If you like the content and you'd like to help support the channel, you can do so. In the description of every video there are some links to ways that you're able to help support the channel so I can continue putting out content. If you're unable to help us in that way, hit that subscribe button up the top there. If you haven't already, become a subscriber. That is support enough. Share the videos, comment, like, it all helps. If you're looking for something else to watch, up top there is my latest video. Down the bottom there is a video that YouTube recommends for you.